What's up, guys? How you doing? My name is Jonathan Coble. I'm a 3D artist. I'm currently specializing with hard surface modeling, primarily in 3ds Max. And this is just where I'm at currently. I'd like to continue to browse and get better as a 3D artist overall and push forward. But I figured this was a time for me to start giving back to the community. I've watched a lot of tutorials throughout the years, and I've learned a lot of different things myself. Um, so I just figured I would share what I know, and I know that'll help people out. And some of these tutorials are going to be more aimed towards beginner as a whole, I'd say. I mean, there'll be advanced stuff I'll share, but I know there's not a whole lot of great starter tutorials out there to where I'm not going to do things step by step like a textbook, but I'm just kind of gonna, I'm just going to kind of show you what's useful, what I know, what works. And I'm no master, I'm no uber professional, but I'm no slug either. So I figure I can share some stuff with you guys. So if you're down, I'm down, and let's get learning. So um, this first video, I'm just gonna go through primarily just different windows and tabs, and just kind of give you a layout of the whole interface, and also like hotkeys and different ways to just kind of speed up your workflow a little bit before you even get working. So, um, and this is primarily aimed towards asset creation, modeling. I'm not going to cover a whole lot of animating. That's not my extreme forte. I still have a lot to learn in that area. But yeah, I figure this will be handy. So let's go through it. First of all, you got your main menus over here, or your side menu. You have your Create tab, your Modify tab, your Hierarchy tab, your Motion tab, Display tab, your Utilities tab. Primarily, what you're going to be using quite a bit for asset creation is going to be these three. You're not going to need Motion so much. This is for setting up animation controllers through wire parameters and all that stuff. Your Display tab, you will utilize this as you go about. Mainly the hide by category is quite useful when you're working in full-on scenes with lights, cameras, helpers, the works, so you can kind of isolate what you're working on. But yeah, let's start with the Create tab over here. So by default it's going to be on geometry, and you have some options here of what you want to create. So you can create boxes, your primitive geometry, and you can go more into extended primitives. Some things I've found to be handy that I've used in the past is like hoses. If you want to create something real quick here, there's more in-depth tutorials out there on how to utilize this stuff, but just kind of giving you a quick go through on different things here. So back to standard here. Yeah, I mean, primarily I when I model, I use very very primitive stuff. I've actually kind of come to the way of a lot of plane modeling, more or less, and just starting with the plane, and just plopping like an edit poly modifier on there, and just starting to subdivide stuff, and I'll just start from the plane sometimes, and just kind of work off that. However, but anyway, I'm kind of running on a bunny trail already. I'm not going to get into modeling. I'll have a personal tutorial on straight up modeling. But yeah, so we have a geometry tab. We have a shapes tab where you can create just plain old shapes. Quite straightforward. You want a circle. You start with a circle. You're essentially working with splines here. You work with lines, and when you're working with lines, you can set your curves up and right click to stop that. And when you go to 1, you can also change the curve type by highlighting the vertices, and right here you have your options here between going to Bezier corner. Bezier is primarily what you want to use, that or smooth, but Bezier I find to be the best. And you see how it kind of curved this angle out. You can Control Z that, and we can step forward as well, and you can see what it's doing there. Really rad. And then when you want to convert this stuff to a shape, you just obviously select it, and you can right click, and you can go to convert to editable poly, and now we have geometry. We have live geometry that we can now manipulate. So let's erase this stuff. All right, we'll go back through the Create tab here. Lights. You know, you have your standard photometric. Now, I forgot to say this from the get, but I'm obviously using 2016 Max. I think what's the latest right now is 2018. I was using 2017 at my previous job, and it definitely switched up the interface style. The aesthetics were different. At first I was kind of but the more I got used to it, I did like it. A little more intuitive, which I'm always for, but it just took some adjusting. So not a huge deal between 16 and 17. They made some improvements on things, but it's all you can go into one and pick up from another. But anyway, we have lights here, so I'm just going to go through. I'm not going to go too much into depth and create everything, but yeah, you have your lights here, and you have your standard. This is what you can utilize a lot of. Obviously, if you're using V-Ray, you're going to need to create some V-Ray lights. V-Ray is quite rad. I'm a big fan. Cameras as well. So you got your cameras tab here. You create cameras and drag and drop. Usually rock with target cameras. That's usually quite versatile. Very universal camera to use. And V-Ray, the new V-Ray kind of switched things up. I don't really like their changes at all, but their way of creating cameras and utilizing that stuff I thought was easier. But that's fine. You can also go to and you can create stuff from the Create tab itself. So you can create a box. You can do it that way. I mean, it's definitely not as effective or as efficient. But what's good here is, say you want to create a camera, you can create a camera from your view. So we're going to create a standard camera from view. And now we have, you saw where I can Control Z that, where we were in perspective. We go forward. Now we're camera 2, so we obviously have camera 1 here. But as we back out, we now see this camera, which is created from the view. Pretty cool. All right, so let's move on from cameras. I feel like I'm spending too much time on this stuff. Got helpers here. One you utilize quite a bit is dummies. Dummies are very handy. Tape has some uses. There's still a lot of things I'm learning here. Stuff more on the technical end. I mean, points are also very handy. You're going to use dummies and points. And then we go into forces. I'm not a master in this area so much. And then we have our systems here. Create sunlight and daylight systems. Biped for quick character rigs and animations. I've used this biped setup to do some just kind of previs animations. You can just kind of set something up and drop some keyframes on stuff. I think that dropped. Should have dropped. Didn't seem like it created a key, but see, no, it's okay. Maybe not so much. All right. Anyway, so we'll just move them there. Now we can see. All right. I don't know why it wasn't setting a keyframe, but yeah. So anyway, yeah. Biped's cool to make some just basic previs stuff for your animations. Get that stuff rocking and rolling. And then you saw what I was using down here. Down here is your timeline. And if you're familiar with timelines from other software programs like Adobe After Effects, Flash is dead, but then you have Premiere, Final Cut, all that stuff. Anything that utilizes a timeline, you can pick this stuff up pretty quick. What you need to know here with the timeline is you do have some right-click controls here, but over here we have our time configuration, and this is where you utilize a lot of different things. So you can set up your video frame rates and your playback rates as far as how fast you want the animation to play. And you can see that's going rather fast right now. What do we have at 4 speeds? We'll go back to 1. But yeah, start frame, end frame. You can increase this stuff up. Quite handy here. Obviously, I'm just kind of going through a lot of general stuff. I mean, you could really spend tutorials straight up talking about each function in each tab system here and go into quite detail. But all right, let's go to the modify real quick, and I wanted to show you just um, some things that I utilize that really help me with workflow. So essentially now you see these buttons here. This isn't there by default. Um, so by default, this is probably what your setup looks like. Just a modifier list and nothing really going on here. Let's just create a box. So we got something here. So now we'll see our modifiers drop down, and that's kind of weird that it'll be there. But anyway, all right. So how to get those buttons? You go into configure modifier sets. And you go right here, and you can see that I have something saved for myself here, and they have some basics, some defaults you can jump up to. But you know, it's cool to create your own. Like, and you'll realize, like, you know, I use certain modifiers quite a bit. So why constantly like drag, drop, search, and it's just a waste of time. So this really helps speed things up. So what I did here is add a bunch of modifiers that I use quite regularly, help workflow, and you can add how many buttons you want and etc. and just drag. You know, I don't want to override mine, but yeah, you can just drag whatever you want on there. Edit mesh, hey, vertex paint, let's do that. All that good stuff. So anyway, we'll go back to mine here, and so all right, that's what we want it set to. Now we want to show buttons. So now we got all these buttons here, so I can quickly instead of dropping down and going, all right, where's that edit poly, there's that edit poly, and instead of doing that, I can just simply click edit poly, and much easier. So that's pretty rad. I'm not going to go into modifiers in detail here. Hierarchy. Hierarchy, sorry. Another handy tip here, mainly for pivot points. I use it for pivot points quite often. And you can see here now, if I was to scale this object, it's going to scale from the center. So you can kind of see it, you know, scaling everything from that pivot. Now what we would do is we would have to change this, we're going to have to select effect pivot only, and move the pivot to where we want to move it. Now when we deselect that, you can see as we scale this, now you can see it scaling from this pivot rather than in the center. And then you might say, well, how do I get that back? I want it in the center. So we'll just go effect pivot point and center to object. And you'll find this useful for a lot of things, centering to object, because there's a lot of times you'll be working with imports and exports, and when you import a lot of stuff from other software programs, or you import it as just like 3D files, you know, a lot of times like the pivot points will come in and they'll be all over the place. They won't even be on anything, so you'll start working, and you don't want your pivots all over the place. So it's a good way when you import stuff to automatically run through here and just select effect pivot point, center to object, get everything centered, ready to be worked on, and yeah, you can go through that stuff, and you go through it rather quickly. So there's also another one that will be handy, and that's align to world. Purpose of that is sometimes center to object won't really put it where you want it to go. And align to world is going to, it should go right to world space, I believe. I'm not a guru here why it's not rocking and rolling, but anyway, there are uses for align to world. The motion tab, I'm not really going to go into this again. It falls under the guidelines of animation, and that's a whole nother trail of its own. But just kind of be accustomed to here that this is where you're going to be assigning controllers for animating objects, and working pretty much in wire parameters here. Should be, sorry here, animation, wire parameters, and all that jazz. So, and then here we have the display tab, and this is handy here for modeling workflow because say you're working in a scene here and we got lights. Now we got some lights, and we got our lights going on, and we also have some cameras. We got some cameras, here, there, and everywhere. Yeah, so we kind of got some stuff in the scene, and this gives you the ability to shut off certain aspects of it. So we can even throw in a shape here, throw in a circle, a couple circles. So yeah, so now we can go in here and say, all right, well, I only want to manipulate my camera, and you got all this stuff in scene, and sometimes you'll have stuff really overlapping, and you're working, and you can't really select that camera easily. It's like, oh man, I got this. It just gets difficult. So an easy way to, while you're working, is just to utilize this display tab and just turn stuff off, and you can select that easily. And so, oh, I just want my camera in scene. You can see by selecting these things, it hides everything else. And so, all right, well, I want to hide this camera. I want to bring back my lights. All right, now let's start working on our lights, and it just speeds stuff up and makes things easier to work on. So that's pretty straightforward there. Another one, let's cover real quick some customized menus here. So right in here in customize, there's a couple you're going to utilize quite often. Preferences, unit setup, customize interface. Let's start with customize interface. Now I stress the importance of hotkeys. Hotkeys is critical, especially for working in or while you're modeling. You can work in expert mode with hotkeys, otherwise you have no use for expert mode whatsoever. And I kind of have a crazier setup. My mouse setup's different than default here. I go Control Alt left mouse button for rotating and different things, and you're always going to have to adjust with stuff because different programs have things a different way. But I utilize this specifically for my hotkey setup. But this is where you'll set up your hotkeys here. So I mean, an important one would be like Swift Loop, so I Alt A that. But anyway, primarily what you want to do is, say you use a certain option so many times, you kind of want to like write down how many times. A good rule of thumb is write down how many times per day like I've used a certain function, certain key or command, and just write it down. And then you look at it through the day and say, well, I got 25 ticks on this thing. Instead of me dropping down, doing, finding my move or whatever I have to do, or going to a menu, like, man, I'll just make a hotkey for it, just that much quicker, and that much more effective, So say like, real quick, you're modeling here, and let's see, real quick, let's get a gray material on that. It's kind of obnoxious to see all the black, but anyway, all right. So now we see. So we're kind of modeling now. So go to edge mode here, and now instead of like for connect, for example, instead of like, okay, I'm going to connect, and I'm going to click all these buttons over here, like extrude. Okay, now I'm going to extrude. Oh, I'm going to go to plane here, and or polygon, sorry, and instead of extruding and every time I want to do something, hitting these buttons and going for it, like just make a hotkey. Now you can see like how much easier it is. Now I got Control E, I have Control B. Now we're gonna bevel that. Oop, sorry. But yeah, I mean it's just more effective. Maybe it wasn't a time saver there, but I kind of forgot my bevel key. But it's all good. It's all good. Inset as well. I think that's just Control I. I mean, when you're moving and grooving, it's definitely it definitely speeds stuff up. Right? It's hard to, if you're talking and walking through here. My mind's not in tune at the moment. So, but yeah, really cool. Really cool stuff. So hotkeys are very important, and to set that up, again, we go to Customize User Interface. Takes a second to load up. If you have a computer like mine that needs an upgrade, Um, and we'll go through this. And I know this tutorial, there's no real specifics in this tutorial. This beginning tutorial, it's just kind of a warm up for me, and because I'm fresh doing this stuff, and it kind of, it's just loosening me up and giving you guys just kind of like an intro on what to do. And as I cover other stuff in the future, I'll reiterate on some of these things. But yeah, so you set up your keys, and anyway, what you do is you want to save your keyboard. You want to save your stuff out. So you're gonna find a nice spot to save it. Right now, I'll just, we're at the desktop, and Mac Start UI. You can tell that it's a, was it a .kbdx file? So wherever you save it, just save it. You can just save that stuff in the Macs directory too in startup. But yeah, just save that out, and you can always load that stuff back in wherever you saved it. So I guess we'll just save it for now. And all right, and let's load it up. Now you can see this file is just created, so you can load that up, and it'll reset it. So, but what you can do is you can put it in a position in your Macs, your 3ds Max program folder, and it'll just boot up with everything you need. I mean, you don't want to reset that every time you open up Macs. Same with the mouse, so you can save that out and set it up. Pretty cool stuff. Don't utilize a whole lot of these menus over here. Never really found a whole lot of huge needs. I mean, customize color scheme on the user interface. I'm assuming this would change. I don't know really what that would change. Okay. Like I said, there's things I'm still learning too. So there's a lot to 3ds Max. You just try and break it down in small bits and learn as you go. So I'm freezing up here. Oh, totally just crashed. Totally just crashed. Something wasn't happy. Let's fire this bad boy back up. Kind of embarrassing, yeah. Like I said, I think I just mentioned it like 2 minutes ago that, yeah, computer upgrade is definitely needed. I look forward to having that opportunity come by. So, but at the moment, I'm just pressing forward here and doing what I can do. So we're going to load this bad boy up again, and just want to cover a couple more things before we end this video off. And I know it's a little all over the place, but hopefully you guys have found some handy stuff, and I could probably break this stuff down into more detailed tutorials, or just cover things a little more on a singular basis. Like I said, this first video is just familiarizing yourself with this stuff, getting just a little exposure. That would be the way to say it. So anyway, yeah, so in our menus here, let's go back here. So we kind of covered customized user interface. Now units, now say you're going to need to make things to a T. I just did a freelance job to where they wanted everything in centimeters, so everything's set up in centimeters here. Usually don't work out of this stuff. I'll work in just generic units, generic max units. Very, very simple, straightforward stuff. But yeah, say you're working in, you want to work in fractional inches. That's where you'd set it up here, and then you can now see the change here. Now you can see over here that we are now working in fractional inches, and if we want to change that, you can just change it on the fly. No big deal whatsoever. Now we're in centimeters, and you can see the change there. So really cool, very handy. I'm just gonna reset mine back to generic units, and you can see it's just generic max units. And then, all right, let's go through preferences real quick. Now, setting up Macs, first thing right here, we're on the General tab, is your basic undos, I believe, is going to be like set to 20. It doesn't take much on your computer at all. Jack that baby up to 250. I got 500. It's saved my butt in the past, where 20 undos is really like nothing. So this has really saved my tail quite a bit. So another go-to here will be gizmos. Gizmos has been handy. Now, what you can do here is you can change, is it like vertex size? Let's see, scale. So you have your scale gizmo here. Anyway, so as you use like the scale function and that kind of stuff, you can actually change the gizmo size. You can make it really big, really small. The defaults work fine for me, but it also depends on your display. So your display might affect things to be smaller than they should be, and you can affect that stuff there. Another one should be, is it viewports right here? Okay, now that's what it's talking about, vert size. So you can change your vertice size. If it's too small, you can up that stuff right here. You can change that up and kick this up to however big, and it gets too big pretty fast, but it is handy. Like I said, depending on your display, um, use what's handy for you. But primarily the main here is undos. That's a good one to change and up. You'll find that'll save your butt in the future. Um, and another one too is auto backup. Actually, I don't know why I have it on. I actually absolutely hate it. So I don't like it when Macs will freeze because it's saving um, backups and I don't like that. You might say, whoa, I mean, well, I want that, man. I forget to save. Well, I would make it a good rule and a good discipline to save often and not worry about that stuff. So anytime I get to certain progress, I'll just save, man. I'll save an iteration. So I'll have my main file already saved. And what you can do is you can just hit this plus tab. And I think also there's a way, there is a way. There's a way to set up your save to where it'll save automatically in increments, and I believe that might even be in the preferences folder. I'll go back to general. It might be, where is that, baby? I'm not going to worry about it. Files, possibly. Save increment on save. There it is. Cool. I almost look like a fool there. Yeah, so as you just even control S, it'll automatically save a new iteration of a file. So it'll be box, instead of box 01, it'll automatically increment it up to 2, 3, 4, 5 every time you save. So I prefer to do things that way, because when I'm working in auto backup, I've even had Macs freeze up and crash and different things because you're working on a heavy scene or something like that. It shouldn't happen that often, but it does happen. So I just don't like the annoyance. Anyway, we'll get out of that, and we kind of covered those there. Going up there in time already. I don't want to take too much of your time covering up a bunch of random stuff here. So real quick up here, like I said, this tutorial is kind of a beginner. If you've already been around Macs, this first tutorial isn't going to help you out a whole lot. Maybe you learned a couple things. That's great. But so let's go through our main commands here. We got to undo, redo, selecting the link. This is where we can link stuff together. It's very handy. You'll find yourself using this one here, so you can select and link that together. So now if I move this fella here, you can see that they're now linked together and they're moving together. So really rad. Now if I move this one, it's independent. This is the child, but this here is the parent object, and wherever the parent goes, the child will go with it. So the child, I believe I said that right. I'm pretty sure. Like I said, I'm not the most savvy either, so I know I'm not going to be hard on myself, but anyway. Alright, rolling on, man. Select object. Again, you want to get away. You don't ever want to really use this stuff. You want the hotkeys to burn in your brain. Like right here, select by name. So as you choose that, you can, alright, well, I'm going to select box 1, box 2. H is the command for that one. Alright, I want to select, anyway. There we go. Select object, and then this is also your marquee selection. I usually utilize these two options the most, square and circle. There are some instances where I've used like the lasso, which isn't a bad tool either. The spray can is okay. Sometimes it's good for like if you're working with a lot of vertices, it can be handy. Otherwise, man, I really just stick with the box drag. It's depending on what you're doing and what you're viewing in. So really cool. Window crossing. This just kind of affects how you select things. You can see that's not really selecting it unless you're kind of in the right view. So there's some uses for that. I'm not an expert with that tool. Obviously, I don't use it a whole lot. Select and move, yes, obviously rotate, select and rotate, select and scale. Again, utilize your keys for this. By default, E is rotate, W is move, R is scale. Now what we have here is we have our views. So right now, when you're set to view with your selection, it's going to go off. It's the view coordinates or the view. Oh, what's the technical terms? Sorry. Anyway, so primarily a lot what I use view, use local. There's some opportunities to use screen and gimbal. Screen's a little bit different. See how like the cursor's moving according to my screen position. So there's some instances where that's handy. Now when I switch to local, local's going to work off the local pivot. So wherever this pivot is here, it's going to work primarily off like the object's local space. So instead of working like now, if we switch to view, right now it's pretty much the same, but those two will switch, and they'll be I don't know exact terminology, but you'll find yourself using those two. Select and manipulate. That's for manipulators here. So if you were to create, was it in systems or no? Or is it? It's been a little while since I've created that. It should be. Anyway, I'm not going to waste your time on that. But it's select and manipulates for working with manipulators, and I've used them in the past. Just kind of forget what they are. You have your snaps toggle. Hotkey is S. Obviously, that's when you move. You can see things kind of moving and snapping. I personally hate it. I've never used it. I do, however, use angle snaps, which is handy. So, like you can see now, I'm rotating at increments of 5, rather than if I take it off now, it's a lot more direct here. A direct measurement of you're moving up by decimal points. But the angle snap's nice. It's all right. Well, I want to move this a quick 90 degrees, and boom, you can do that there. So percent snaps toggle, don't use that a whole lot. Another big one here is mirror, so you can mirror your geometry, so that's always handy, and you can copy it. You can also select which coordinate you want to move it at, X, Y, Z. Just make a copy. Now we mirrored it, and obviously mirrored at that pivot point. Another big one too is align. You'll find that to be very handy. So you can align different objects together. And I forgot those are linked. So that's what this one here is for. We'll break the links, and the links are now broken. So now we can align these two together, and yeah. And then let me go through the options real quick on that. We're kind of getting up there in time, so I'm just going to wrap this up quick here. Anyway, alright, so yeah, you can go to local axis, which is going to go right to the pivot point, and on all those axes, and you can match scale. You can see how the scale is kind of transforming, and that can be hit or miss. And you can also choose different things. You can choose the center, so it's going to go center object, or it's going to go by the pivot point. And as you recall, we have our pivot point moved here, so it's not to the center. So yeah, that was good there. For me, it should be. My hotkeys aren't updated on my home computer. Should be set. Anyway, so cool stuff there. We have our layer explorer here, and layers are quite handy. Like I said, this is general go through stuff, guys. I mean, you could spend a major tutorial covering everything in detail. So this is just kind of a in your face, information. I'm just kind of going through majority of stuff that's handy that you will use in asset creation more than anything. Like I said, I'm not covering animation. I'm getting all into that. So anyway, yeah, we have our layers here. We want to create a new layer. It's nice. It's a little more intuitive now. I mean, you can use these buttons to create a new layer. Now we have a new layer, and since the box was selected, I went with it. Box 2 is on our default layer. You can also use your right click, and I found right click to be a lot more intuitive with adding and deleting, renaming, all that jazz. You can even, move. Now you should be able to just drag. There we go. That's what's cool. It's a lot more intuitive now. Before you had to like select and add, to a layer that way, and now it's, well, we have a layer and a layer. We don't need any of that stuff. Anyway, so let's see. Is it because it's? Oh, we can delete that. You should be able to delete. Should be able to delete layers there, but using this delete button. No, it's a remove filter. Sorry. I guess it's all utilized through the right click. There we go. Alright, for a second there I was getting confused. I don't know why that wasn't working. So this is handy. Scene Explorer, some people like it displayed up on the window side here. That's how 2016 opens up. You see how I didn't have that on there. I don't like that. When I use scenes, I'll just open the button to dock it. You should be able to right here, dock left. There we go. Alright. Yeah, so now this is how yours will look and set up. I personally just prefer the extra window space, but I don't know, it's not that big of a deal, I guess. Toggle ribbon here, it's going to drop and open up your polygon modeling tools. I'm not going to cover this stuff, but this stuff can be very handy. And alright, we have our material editor, render setup. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff to go through. Primarily just kind of giving you an intro here to just some basics here and getting started. And I'm going to cover some other stuff in detail here, and like unwrapping, modeling, hard surface modeling, and just take you through some of the stuff. But for myself too, I'm just getting loose with this stuff. It's my first tutorial, so I'm learning as well, guys. So thank you for your time, and believe in yourself, man. Keep working hard. This is difficult stuff, and it just takes time. There's still a lot where I need to know and grow, and I'm excited for those opportunities to continue to do that. And all you can do is take it one day at a time. Be patient with yourself, keep working hard, keep pushing forward, and good things will happen. So, all right, guys, take care. Thanks again.